Hello and welcome to this week's edition of ELCAT News. I'm Jen Carlos. Tuesday, May 1st saw the selection of Sarah Trulio and Susan Mantoni to face each other on June 5th for the open seat on the school committee. Town Clerk Tom Florence read the results minutes after the polls had closed.
Okay, here are the results. I'll just give total numbers. Trulio, 642. Mantoni, 484. And Torsia, 416. So according to these results here, the two people who will proceed to the June 5th annual town election will be Ms. Trulio and Ms. Mantoni. Thank you very much. Great job.
The turnout for the preliminary election represented about 9% of the town's eligible voters. No seats for town council are being contested this year. ELCAT will produce and televise a debate between the two candidates during the 2 weeks prior to the June 5th town election. On Wednesday, the town council met to consider the supplemental funding requests included in the departmental budgets submitted to the council last month. The supplemental requests reflect increases in programs, new expenses, and in some cases, additional costs to current operations. The council also considered capital expenditures for the upcoming year. At its next meeting on May 8th, the council will review enterprise and revolving funds, which support programs associated with specific sources of non-general fund revenue. We'll have more detail from Wednesday's meeting after the news summary. Also on Wednesday, the Community Preservation Committee met to hear a presentation from the Recreation Commission about its proposal to undertake renovations and improvements to Heritage Park. Those proposals have been displayed for public review at the library and were the subject of 2 meetings earlier this year before the Planning Board. Following the presentation, the Community Preservation Committee voted to approve up to $300,000 of CPC funds for the project. On Tuesday, the Board of Assessors reviewed monthly building reports, noting that the pace of new residential construction has slowed so far this year, with only 1 permit pulled in March.
Looks like we have 1 new construction, a condo.
Yep.
At the Fields.
It's a little bit slow this year so far.
Yeah.
Last Saturday, the East Longmeadow Health Department conducted its free car seat install and check at Center Square.
Probably up here. He's a little tall. He's about 40 inches.
So one of the things we'll do today is take your car seat out and show you. There's a manufacturing date and also an expiration date on each seat. All car seats do have expiration dates, so it's important to know if your car seat is not expired. We'll also look on a safety recall and make sure the seat you have is not on a recall list. There's about 175 different types of seats out there, and none of them are made the same. It makes it challenging. It does make it challenging.
If you weren't able to make today's safety check install event, we were able to do it per appointment at any time. You can call the health department at 413-525-5400, extension 1103 to make an appointment. We're happy to do it anytime.
That's it for the news summary. Now for upcoming events, library learning, and extended excerpts from Wednesday's council discussion of the proposed budget. A reminder that on Tuesday, May 8th, the Town Council meets in the media room of the Senior Center. On the agenda is its final discussion of town enterprise and revolving funds, planning for this year's Memorial Day celebrations, and discussion in open session of the Council's first annual review of the town manager as outlined in the charter. On Saturday, May 12th, the East Longmeadow Lions Club hosts its annual pancake breakfast from 8 until 11 a.m. in the ELHS cafeteria. Proceeds from the event will benefit the Spartan Girls Track and Field team. Now here's what's happening at the East Longmeadow Public Library this week.
On Monday, May 7th at 6:30 p.m. is the event Chemical Free Home. Feeling overwhelmed by the potential toxins in your home but not sure where to start? Meet in the library community room to learn how essential oils support chemical-free homes, save money, and replace the chemicals in your everyday cleaners. On Tuesday, May 8th from 6 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. is Starry Night Stories. Drop in for evening stories. Don't forget to wear your PJs. And on Saturday, May 12th from 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. is ELPL Eats. This month, the group is cooking from Mighty Salads by Food 52 just in time for Mother's Day. They'll be sampling tasty salads like you've never had before. Copies will be available at the circulation desk, and registration is required. Make sure to choose 2 recipes, one for your main choice and one as a backup. Bring your favorite salad to the meeting and have a chance to sample others.
Now extended excerpts from Wednesday's council meeting to discuss the FY19 budget. The meeting began with consideration of supplemental requests by each department, followed by discussion of capital projects to be funded next year.
So today we will be looking at just some of our general fund sources, our capital projects and our supplemental budget request for 2019. And we will start with the town clerk, item 160 on the supplemental 2019 requests.
These election expenses are an every year expense.
Right.
And we have
I
no
would-
choice. It's an
I would
upgrade.
like
That
to
should be a line
establish a budget just for elections so that that budget reflects, these aren't supplementals, these are necessary.
Yes.
So,
And actually,
yeah.
Denise, just to touch on that, I know we had a discussion about it this morning. So the most we usually do is 3 elections in a year, usually.
Well,
Four.
if you have a preliminary, local election,
State.
and then a state primary and a state election.
So the most we do is 4, which the total was usually around 8,000, so that would be like 32,000 as a line item.
Exactly.
If we don't end up doing 4 elections, the money that's left could be used for certain other things that come up in the clerk's office. One of the things that we discussed this morning was an issue that we kind of talked about over the course of time was advertising for bylaw postings, which that money could go there and anything left over could be returned to the general fund. So it may be worth looking at funding that as a line item in the
I
clerk's budget
Totally agree.
for that total amount of 32,000, and anything left we can use if we need. And of course, we have, coming up, we're gonna have some significant bylaw changes based on the feedback that we got from department heads. So that's gonna be a pretty significant point for us to make some expenditures, which now we have to do a special funding out of the general fund every time we're gonna post one of those, because we don't have a line item for that either. Or if we do, it's never enough, because we
Underfunded,
don't know how
yeah.
much it's gonna be to post each one.
I agree with everything that's been said here, and that this should not be a supplemental, as you indicated, Denise. And in the future, if it means going over a threshold that's set, and as in this year being 2%, then it is what it is.
The codification software can actually come off because we're looking at Community Compact grant for that. That 9820 is actually purchasing the software, which is probably a good idea, but again,
It's
we're
an
looking
excellent
at,
idea.
we're looking at the grant money from best practices that we got into with the Lieutenant Governor's office to purchase that software, so we can remove that 9820 and then.
We don't have to address that now.
Not right now.
Okay.
I would just like to make another comment as it relates to the purchase of software for any department. I think we need to be, when we ask a department head to give us a price, it's not only for the actual retail purchase. We need input from Mr. Quimby on maintenance fees and any other recurring costs down the road.
Tom is
because-
looking at me because I think we just had that
Because
conversation.
that is a deceiving figure to the naked eye when you just look at the retail cost of it.
I think that's an invaluable piece that needs to be included in any software purchase to make sure that we have support and buy-in from the head of IT.
141, assessor. Ryan, can you help me understand what the software is for this assessor's thing? Do you know about that? Because I don't really have a good grasp on what that is, but I'm
So
assuming.
it's not a regular maintenance upgrade, it's like basically changing the whole back end. When we purchased the software and they installed it, they put it on an older database engine, and now we need to bring it up to the modern Microsoft SQL database engine
So
instead of on Pervasive.
today's technology as opposed to dinosaur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of outside normal maintenance because we have to buy Microsoft SQL licenses, which are not cheap.
Okay.
And that's included in this price, the SQL license?
Yep.
Ryan, when we purchased this, this was a project about 4 years ago when the assessor's office upgraded.
Yeah.
Assessor's office upgraded to this new software. So this is something that we purchased at that time that was outdated. Were we given a discount on that? And now we're paying for it?
My understanding was there was issues with the newest version at that time, so they installed a more stable, older version. And now the older version's out of support and we need to move to the newer version.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the supplemental request for assessor's office, item 141 on the supplemental.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Collector treasurer, item 145. $15,767 to change the part-time position to full-time position, which we've received a backup document. The request for a part-time admin assistant to move to full-time. This employee's main functions will be counter coverage, telephone coverage, and dispersing a weekly warrant. Prior to department division, there were 5.5 staff members answering the phones and taking their turn at the counter, and they currently have 3.5. Assistant treasurer should not be a regular counter person due to segregation of duties and controls. He's the final person to balance all payments and transactions. If he's removed from the counter, they'll be down to 2.5 staff members to serve the residents. The new cash policy, the volume of foot traffic has increased. The collector staff have written 370 cash receipts since the new policy for fire permits, dump stickers, dog licenses, marriage, death, and birth certificates, and other miscellaneous items. The fire department has requested that the collector's office take responsibility for the selling of fire permits. With this extra staff, this will be possible to do that. Dump stickers, it's also been suggested that the office sell the dump stickers with extra staff. That would be possible to take on. Those two, I'd just like to comment on that right now. The way it works is they go in to pay at the collector treasurer's office, then have to go back to whatever department it is with the receipt. So if I want a burn permit, I have to come to town hall, pay, then go to the fire department
Or
and show
upstairs to
them my
public
receipt.
works.
Or the same thing with being in the building and going to the dump, DPW for a dump permit, you have to pay and then go upstairs with your receipt to show that you can get it. So it's been a little inconvenient, to say the least. For
Not
the
customer
residents.
friendly.
Yeah, not so user friendly.
Can we just eliminate the fee? You're charging someone $5 and going to 2 different departments? Is it really, I mean, how much do we generate in
I think this year the total was 350 permits, so $1,650.
I think you should eliminate the fee and go directly to the fire department, and this is a non-issue.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Right now, it's a 19-hour position, this part-time collector treasurer position.
Correct.
It's an unbenefited position, it's 19
Correct.
hours.
Correct.
I know we had a discussion last meeting during the budget about benefits and what they add to everything. Is there an option to hire another 19-hour person? Therefore,
I can ask
making
that
me sound
question.
cheap and avoiding benefits, but
Yeah.
while also avoiding benefits and, saving the town some money and still having the same time frame of coverage, it would seem.
I would not be in favor of making this a full-time position. I'm not even sure we need another half-time position at this point, where we can either reconsolidate resources and share, or don't. But either way, I mean, I to make it a full-time position, we're not really sure, just for a few little things here. I'm not feeling that one.
So I'll entertain a motion at this point to decline on
Not add.
145, not add that to the supplemental budget request, and hold off until there's a better assessment of need.
So move.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
155 IT. You had done a system analyst position request, so over the course of the last 15 years, despite responsibilities have increased 5 times, you have not added a position to IT.
Nothing. The only position that was added to IT since I started in 2000 was the network administrative position.
Okay, and then the GIS guy, but that was
Transferred.
sort of transferred over its responsibility. The addition of the position will help distribute mid-level support tasks transferred from 3 other positions: our application analyst, system administrator, and IT director.
Departments need to be coming forward with the anticipated line item, or the line that the salary falls on.
Whole picture.
And the whole picture, because that's, we've talked about that in the school department for years, that it was really, that's a
They're just
misrepresentation.
picturing, here's the
Right.
salary that I get, but not all the other pieces.
I have a question for Ryan. Right now, besides you and Mr. Woodward, there's 2 others?
3 others.
3 others.
Yep, we have an applications analyst who handles Munis and also is more of a level 2 support. And then we have 2 level 1
Techs.
techs. Yep.
So I'm looking at your rationale here, and it says you haven't added a position in about 15 years. But I recall when I was in the school department that we did have an individual who worked for the department, and then she ultimately left
Yep.
to take another position in another neighboring district.
When we merged with the school department in 2000, 9.
Mhm.
We also took over the 2 staff from there. So with
Okay.
the responsibility came the staff.
Okay.
So it's not really an addition, since it's more of a consolidation.
Okay.
Down to the next 2 items, the cloud and the information security training, Brian. That's something we're looking at the compact grant possibly to do. We just haven't got a real.
For the
firm-
cloud backup,
The cloud backup, but the security piece is not under that.
correct.
Okay.
So is this a one-time cost, or are these gonna be recurring? Fees.
They will both be recurring.
So next year, there'll be a budget line item? If we
Yeah,
approve.
the security training currently is a budget, or in FY18 is a budget line item, but to meet the budget guidelines, it had to get cut. So it falls under the supplemental.
Wait a minute. You already have this cost established?
Yep. But due to other increases, to
Right,
meet the
so-
percentage, we had to
Right,
drop it.
but back to the original, like, this should be not a supplemental, this should be on his budget, and if it went to 2.1,
Then
it
that's
should have
what it
been,
goes.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
I don't know how other people want to see it, I don't.
Oh,
wanna-
that's true.
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
to see it as a supplemental, because
Because-
it has,
It's a real cost.
Yeah.
we have to approve it.
In the
Basically.
past, people have been given a bottom line percentage number, and they would actually cut pieces of their real budget, their regular budget, to make that number, and then put those pieces in supplemental, but you're right. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you kind of need to have them anyway, because they're already a part of a working budget.
So that would beg, excuse me for jumping in.
No.
That would beg the thought that we need to, going into the next, a year from now, be directing department heads to level service. You add in your contractual obligations and level service.
And anything that is above that
Then
needs
we
to
have a
be,
much clearer picture.
needs to be
Right.
well
agree, yeah.
documented.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay.
Just, again, back to that top line, the 52,000 number, that's probably about 35% more with benefits and everything
Everything is about
else,
70,
right?
about 70.
About 70 total.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hearing, it sounds like that it's doable right now, and right now, with the information I have, I would be more inclined to want to revisit this next year in line, try and keep this budget in line.
I would tend to, my personal opinion is that I would tend to want to fund that now. We're gonna have to do it sooner or later.
I think it's legitimate to fund based on what we're expecting for increases in technology.
Right. I mean, there's some significant projects. If you do, you have to make a decision with, payroll HR technology.
Could we visit it in January?
Or
Is that
go
half-year
forward and
position?
just start it up in January. That'll give them enough still running time to acclimate before any of those other proposals come online, because we're not sure about the codification software yet, when that's going to be available. We haven't addressed the accounting software. So yes, we're probably going to be doing all of that, but if it's not going to be in July and
Maybe July,
August,
right.
Why would we try to put this into 2019?
So I would be in favor, Ryan, if you can deal with that, to maybe have that position start after the first of the year.
Entertain a motion to approve supplemental budget 155 with the changes of 52,434 to 26,217 and the 6,000 for information security training. So the total supplemental 32,217.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
210, police.
If we go to the combined dispatch, which we are headed in that direction very definitely, the concern of the dark station is one that I personally have had issue with since we've started this combined dispatch. What this proposal would do is man 24/7, that there would be somebody there. Somebody that is already there, she is the records clerk, would be up front in the daytime during her 8 to 4 hours. So that takes away the need for totally new positions for that. The evening and nighttime hours and early morning are the ones that are sort of, we're not sure exactly what the need is. So this would be the high end of the investment It's likely that at the end of a couple of years, but we don't have any statistics on it, that we find that between certain hours, we really don't have anybody coming into the station. If that is the case, by then we would be looking at an alternative to possibly have a video camera that they would be fed right into the Hampden, if we're headed down the same direction, into the Hampden police station. They would be speaking to somebody, the dispatch, right in Hampden. There would be a safe door kind of thing that they could go into, that, you know, if they're being chased by somebody, they wouldn't, there wouldn't be a safety issue. So that's the longer term plan, but in order to get the combined dispatch going now, this is what we'd need to just man the station.
So are you really going to go hire 2 full-time receptionists, 3 part-time receptionists right away?
Yeah, it's a 24/7 operation.
Well, no, I know
so,
that, but you were
yeah.
saying you could scale up, this would be the high end of it. So I'm saying,
This is
is
the
it
high
all
end for now, and
necessary?
then, yes. The initial is when we need to invest more, and then we might be able to pull back.
Right.
The lieutenant position is a deficiency that I've seen since I got here, that we have a very flat organization in the police department. We have patrolmen, we have sergeants, and then we have a chief. So there is no mid-level management, there is no other management, and no training ground for a next chief.
Succession planning hasn't been a big part of what we have done.
No, we've been very reactive, but, you know, I mean, and I don't disagree with any of that, and it seems essential to me, and so do the other positions, and so does everything else on here. But yet we're in a year where, you know, our assessed values went up, our water and sewer rates went up, and now we're talking about a mill rate going up, and now we're talking about a supplemental budget. And at some point, it's not tenable. We've got elderly people that are in this town that don't use all these services, and this is becoming problematic. I mean, it's every year we're going 2% plus wish list, and everybody's got a really legitimate case. Like, it's, so when you look at them individually, they all make sense to some degree, more than others. You know, so that's kind of where I am. I mean, we're looking at, you know, I mean, this is a pretty big ask when you add these 2 things up, and
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe, on that one. I mean, we're looking at, if it's say $1 increase in the mill rate.
Entertain a motion to approve the 210, item 210, the police supplemental budget.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 220 fire. 15,497 is the increase in the 19-hour administrative position and 30 hours in change in pay grade. This is a staffing services increase with the ambulance service. I know we had discussed this sort of generally at the last meeting, and at some point this position becomes benefit eligible, that there will be possibility, Paul, that this will be defrayed at some point by the payments from the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
So this is sort of initial expenditure, and we'll look at, it actually ends up saving us money down the road, really, right? This,
Ultimately, the revenues from the ambulance will hopefully go into some type of revolving account. That's for Denise, Sarah, and I to
Figure out.
arrange and
once we
exactly
get, yeah.
determine how that's going to work, but yeah.
The revenue we might see by running our own service and doing our billing, would that down the road offset the cost of this increase here, do you think, or are we?
Ultimately, the goal, and if mirroring similar communities, Long Meadow is 25% of their entire fire budget, which covers their admin that handles this work, plus firefighter positions. They put money into a capital account that helps fund these payments. So I think the number for them is $550,000 into their operating, plus the amount that they put in for their capital annually. Wilbraham, their entire ambulance budget, they divide their fire budget 2 ways. Their entire ambulance budget of $800,000 is covered by the revenues.
Okay, so that would be a yes.
Yes.
I'm all for supporting the chief in regards to the ambulance service that's going to come online with the town. I think that's going to be an invaluable service that we're going to be offering. My concern is we're talking apples and oranges. if we fund this position, it becomes a permanent full-time position, and we can no longer fund it out of revolving funds if we're going to go that way in the future. So once we start it, we can't stop it unless we remove a person from that fold and put them into the revolving fund, which is only allowable part-time.
But we could fund other fire department related items
Right.
from the revolving
Revolving
fund.
fund,
So we,
And
it
offset
still
this.
gives us a revenue stream to offset some other
There's
expenses
different
that could
ways-
go
there's
there.
different ways.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve 220 fire department supplemental budget.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Supplemental budget 300 education, looking for 63,000 for intensive special needs teacher grade 9 to 12, 63,000 for an instructional technology specialist, 12,000 increase in the current .8 band music to a full-time employee, 65,000 special ed teacher with training in social and emotional support for grades 6 through 8, 63,000 as a math specialist intervention teacher in grades 3 through 5, and 25,000 increase in curriculum renewal line item. We can move forward on this discussion now if people have input.
So if I'm reading that correctly, the third priority, support for social and emotional challenges, would be funded through the out-of-district tuitions? Is that what's being said? Am I understanding that correctly? So that really,
That's why it's not highlighted on
Yeah,
there.
that's-
okay, so
and
the
that's not
funds
our
exist,
budget.
you're just making a ledger move.
Because within that time, we've showed you that we've tried to make accommodations.
Right, okay. So my statement was going to be that sooner than later, we're going to be looking at a retirement, and it'll be very difficult to recruit a .8 individual who could probably get 1.0 work in a neighboring district for the same kind of money. The individual retiring is probably getting benefits, and so we're not looking at any benefits there, and it's, these are my words, cheap investment to fulfill to make the position whole, and to do an increased job with both programs.
Makes sense.
I would support that.
I want to make a statement about number 6, increase in curriculum renewal line item. I can almost repeat verbatim what Valerie Anir told us last year when I asked the question, because you needed 50,000 because you kind of got blindsided with the AP program and needed to front load some expenses there to be able to stay inside the AP program for our kids. Would that be a recurring expense? Because we can't do that every year. And her remarks were, no, it's a one-time and we'll make do the next year. So I'm going to stand on that and say I don't support it. And that's hard for me to do that as a career educator, but we're bleeding money here in this supplemental budget.
I didn't know for a fact that that was the conversation.
Well, it was on camera.
Right.
Kathy, can I speak to that, or to the chair?
Go ahead, Greg.
So my recollection of last year, in that I know we had requested an ongoing curriculum renewal increase, and it was decided that it would just come out of free cash, but the request was originally to put it in the budget as we're trying to do this year, last year, but the decision was made to fund it with free cash and not to put it in. So the need is there
Greg is
for
right.
increased
I
curriculum
agree.
renewal.
I don't
Perhaps
disagree.
we just talk
Yeah.
about the AP part of it, but there's certainly a need, and we asked for it last year, but it was just funded differently through free cash. Certainly a need for an increase.
Mr. Thompson's correct on that, where we ended up taking it from, but, and I don't refute that there's always a need in curriculum.
So there's always a need in curriculum, why are we asking for it in the supplemental budget?
It's
Why
an
is it-
increase from our current line item for curriculum renewal.
But why
And
didn't
it
this go in the
doesn't fit
current
within
line
that
item?
2%.
The same philosophy that.
All the
made
departments were
2%
struggling
and
with
after,
because
It's, you know, we got a 5.
Greg, do you know what that line item is currently? Do you know what that breakout
Right
is?
now,
It's 100 now.
100,000.
Yeah, because if you look in the far left, it increases to 125. It's at 100.
Yeah.
Decreasing to 1.5.
And so what, from the 100 that's already allocated in the budget, what more would you do with the extra 25? What would go
It's
towards?
curriculum renewal every year, textbooks, some licensing fees, and they're expensive. So there's times that we'll try to find money to supplement that. There's times that we stick right to the 100 because that's all we have in the budget. But there's always a need for more than $100,000 in curriculum renewal.
Got it.
And that's just, I mean, we can talk about textbooks and age of textbooks going to high school. There's no question we're not being frivolous on curriculum renewal. We have some old textbooks that we have in a rotation, so it's already 6 years planned out. This is next year's.
Yeah, there's a 5-year renewal plan.
Just generally, or we want to take each
Sure.
I think we have to.
supplemental expense individually to see where we are as far as, I mean, the total ask is 291,000.
Just take like a roll call vote on each one. See where we're at.
Yeah, so let's start with if we're looking at the supplemental budget request, 300 education. 63,000 for intensive special needs teacher, grade 9 through 12.
Mr. Chair, can I interject? Don't mind.
Go ahead.
So if you're going to take a roll on each individual item, it doesn't mean that we're going to fund that item or not fund that item. I just want to clarify that. So I'm not sure voting in favor of each position is going to do because it's not positions. Does that make sense?
But it's
Right.
It does. I think I think what's happening here, Greg, is that I don't know that anybody's going to say yes to it all, but I think there's it's great in the sense that we're working in a collaborative manner, and Gordon has broken these out for us so that we have something to discuss, because if you just put a gross number in front of us and we look at your budget line item of $30 million, then it's hard to, we wouldn't understand what it was for. There's justification here of what it's for. So again, the comment I made about the $12,000, at the end of the day, if you guys do something different with it, okay. I
That's just my point, though.
Yeah.
So say you vote to not support the intensive special needs teacher, it doesn't mean that we're not going to have the new special intensive needs.
How you guys spend it is up to you.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
I'm just being clear on that.
We understand that, but
Yeah, we do. But it's better than looking at
if we look at your prioritized, apart from the contractual stuff, that's a given. Number 2, the special needs teacher at the high school, if we gave you XYZ dollars, and you've told us that you've prioritized this, wouldn't you start there?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
But my point is, if the council, and I'm only using that.
I get that, yeah, we don't have purview
of
of how you select, we understand that, right.
We're still going to do it because it's our top priority.
Yes.
I guess that's my point. So the rationale for voting each one individually, I'm not quite understanding. If we prioritize them, then perhaps you just go from the bottom and say we're going to fund up to a certain level and then leave it from there.
Well,
I just don't know that it's the council's responsibility to pick which ones we should.
No, we get that. I think we
All right,
can.
But you're going to do that though if you vote in
Okay.
favor of each one or not.
All right, I'm going to make a motion, entertain a motion to approve $27,000 for the education supplemental budget. That's the increase in curriculum line item and then .8 music teacher to full-time.
Can we have further discussion on that?
I
Move
would
for
like to
discussion.
hear from these two folks a little more about each one and where because they've had the prioritized discussions within your committee, correct? So hearing about each one helps me decide for me, okay, it's not our job legally to say, well, we want the special ed teacher, but we don't want the librarian, or whatever. But it helps me come up with a number,
No, I follow you.
and then
That's
you
fine.
play with that how you need to.
I don't want to be coy about this, but when we're asking for this list, the list obviously was much longer than it was. So we cut it down to a point that we were hoping would be acceptable to fund all the positions. If we added 9, 10, 11, 12 positions in thinking that 1 or 2 might be cut, that would be disingenuous, right? So we put these in front of you thinking these are the ones we specifically want. We don't really want to not fund any of them. So I say that in terms of, it's not that we're asking for everything, we're asking for what we think is manageable within this year's budget and what we really need, so.
So if we allocate a number, something different from the 291, are you able to move that number, use that number to appropriate where you want to spend those funds on?
Mhm.
Yeah, we can only spend what is allocated by the council.
Right. So whatever we put out there, then you guys choose where you want to delegate those funds.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Joe? So I don't know how you want to do this. Maybe start with, more of an informal, like, is anybody in favor of approving 291,000 in a supplemental budget? And then if not, then maybe we can
Well, let's answer
figure
that
out.
question. Paul?
No.
Joe?
Yes.
No.
No.
Kathy?
No.
Mike?
No.
Okay. It's $30 million budget, and you're asking for another $300,000. So we're not funding $300,000. That's just the bottom line. And we've done it with every single department. We've gone through it line by line with everybody else. You're no different, so that's where we're at. What's the number we're at? Mike, you have a number on the table.
I picked two categories where I'm hoping they can delegate those funds to where they want. I added 2 plus the band leader, it's $138,000.
I say I'm throwing out there the first 4 items. The last 2, as important as they can be, they maybe could be working. So the first 4 line items.
Which is the total dollar amount of what?
I can get a calculator. 63 intensive special needs, 63 instructional technology, 12,000 the point increase to .8 music, and 65 special ed. Again, these are just based on the first 4 priorities.
So that's 203,000.
Correct.
Right, it's what I asked for plus the 65,000, an additional 65 for another department.
I would support that.
Paul?
I was actually thrown in the curriculum renewal, so I was up to 228. I feel like Monty Hall.
Would you support the 203?
I think there'll be wiggle room.
Yes, definitely.
Because
Tom?
I would support that.
Joe?
Ask
Mike?
Kathy.
Kathy?
I'm voting on what, the 203? Yes.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve $203,000 for item 300 in the supplemental budget request for education.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Library. Just want to remind everybody, the library came in, one of the only departments last year that came in under budget that we requested. Well, in the budget.
I do have one question about that. So it's a 25-hour position, it's already benefit eligible.
Yes.
Correct.
30-hour position, so why not just make it a full-time, like 37 and a half? What do we-
I was looking at that, and in order to stay under this year in my request, talked about it with Sarah, and we thought that 30 would be a good place to start. We definitely have enough work for the individual. If we did go to the full 37.5, it would put me slightly over the 2% requested cap for increase.
The department head has done a phenomenal job with this library program and how she operates a budget. So I'd be in favor of going to the 30 hours. While I still have the invisible microphone. The $2,100, oh yes, it is an invisible, to offset shortfall in materials budget. Did I understand, Layla, last week, you said that that's sort of tied to the maintaining the CW Mars subscription?
Yes.
Then that, to me, falls in the same thinking
Should
as
not
the
be.
elections budget.
Right.
Which she wasn't here for.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but if it's a requirement to participate in something that's statewide, that's enough, that's a given, that should just be in there, and you put in the number every year that has to
And if it's
maintain
over,
that
it's over. We have
subscription, and we deal with it.
Put it in the budget next year.
Just saying that we would support that, and it should not have to really ever be on a wish list,
It's not an increase in a service or a
No,
position.
it's kind of like the maintenance fees on a license.
So basically, at this time, Layla, you're looking for 8370,
Yes.
right? So I'm going to I'll entertain a motion to approve 8370 in the library supplemental budget.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick?
What I'm trying to do is to free up the current assistant director who does a lot of clerical work, and I want that position with myself out in the field more. And my first thought was trying to assess all the clerical, and when I say clerical, I mean that's the ordering, ordering
clerical.
uniforms for the associations, the sports equipment. There's just a lot involved with taking, again, that off the plate of the association. So my first thought was is I would rework the entire department, and that I'd have 2 department heads, and then we could split, and there would be 3 of us that we could interchange duties. And with the current structure with the other full-time position being a union position, I don't have that flexibility. So that's where my thought process was in the beginning. But then after Denise and I talked, I feel like that maybe we can backtrack and try some other things before we go that next step.
And it's one of those departments that she and I will work closely together.
I am ready to entertain a motion to support the request for the increased clerk position from 19, it's going to go to 37.5 right now. To 37.5, which originally was 35, but the compromise is going to be 37.5. That dollar figure will look like something over 16,354.
So moved. Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Denise, on capital,
Yes.
in our budget for capital, we went to 1.13 million.
If you look at the first page of the handouts that I gave you, capital projects was budgeted at 1.103. Current proposal for the 1.103 was a decrease of 9% from last year. So I think whatever after the generator that you should choose is kind of a bonus, and I guess at this point I would suggest that we not go any further. That will help the bottom line, because we really have had a difficult time with the supplementals.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine with me.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the capital budget up to $1,129,650.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
We leave you with a look at Meadowbrook Elementary School's art project titled Shades of Meaning.
At Meadowbrook Elementary School, a colorful art installation covers the walls of the main entrance hallway, giving a beautiful array of tints and hues to staff, students, and visitors to catch sight of. Donna Moore, art teacher, and Abby Steiner, ELL teacher, combined forces to create a unit of study called Shades of Meaning, in line with the Massachusetts Curriculum Framework for English Language Arts and Literacy and the Massachusetts Arts Curriculum Framework for the Study and Expression of Color. With the help of Mrs. Moore's student teacher Ellie Trudeau and inspiration from the books My Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss, My Blue is Happy by Jessica Young, and My Fantastic Words book, Young Student's Thesaurus by Ken Pransky, students studied the vocabulary of feelings and movement and the shades, tones, and tints of colors. CVS donated hundreds of stunningly colored envelopes to the art department, which gave Moore the perfect opportunity to act on Steiner's idea. It was really all about the colors and putting all of these colors in the bulletin boards. It just kept evolving, Donna Moore said. After posting the envelopes, the next question was, how do we get the words to the colors? They started with words like valor, which the second graders matched to red, and frightened, which they matched to gray. Moore wanted it to be an installation, a breathing, working piece of art. Then, when including first graders, they started talking about intensities to teach the children about tints. First graders were asked to organize words by intensity along with the color these words represented to them. To add kindergarteners, they started talking about emotions. Soon, students started making drawings to represent what the color made them think of or feel, which was when the project became 3D. Every child in the building had exposure to this project, including ESL students, which the project was especially beneficial for. ESL students have a lot of ideas and perceptions but lack the words, Steiner said. But when they don't have the words, they can use the colors. Student teacher Ellie Trudeau said it taught the students that words are subjective, which in turn helped them to learn about their own individuality. It started with the idea that words can represent art and specific words can represent colors, but there's no right or wrong answer, Abby Steiner said. It was a self-reflection for the students.
My favorite color pink is my pink colored dress that goes on my Barbie.
That's it for this edition of ELCAT News. I'm Jen Carlos. See you next week.